Hello, friends. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and welcome to Signs of Our Time, discovering America's heritage one sign at a time. This podcast is designed to provide the story behind the story that we find on America's roadside historical markers. In today's episode, I want to look at the story behind the first 911 call. It's likely that you have made an emergency call using 911. This number is taught to all ages, from pre-kindergarten to senior citizens. It's almost an automatic response when an emergency occurs to grab the phone or direct someone to call 911. Immediately, everyone knows what to do. Using 911 is so common that it seems that the service has always been there. Well, many of us can remember that if there was an emergency and we needed immediate help, we would call the fire department or police station. We might have called the phone operator, and then that person would make the call. This involved knowing what number to call and dialing a 7-digit phone number. The number would be different for whichever emergency service we were trying to contact. Now, if we were smart, we kept the emergency services number next to the phone. Oh, and by the way, we didn't have a cell phone, so we had to locate our phone to make the call. And often the call was routed to a general number at the emergency services, so there was a likelihood of a busy signal during peak times. Well, that all began to change in the United States in the mid-20th century as emergency providers and government officials realized that there was a problem, and they began to look for a solution. It was realized that this wasn't just a local issue. It could even impact all of society during emergency situations. And it was understood that the earliest that the services could be contacted, then the quicker the situation could be resolved. Truly, lives were at risk. The solution was a single, universal number that everyone could call, no matter their location. This would not be an easy thing to accomplish. In 1957, the National Association of Fire Chiefs recommended a single emergency number. Well, no immediate action was taken at that time. And it was again suggested by the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Justice in 1967. Well, then in 1968, AT&T and the Federal Communications Commission formally chose 911 as the national emergency number. The number 911 was chosen because it was short, easy to remember, and easily dialed on the rotary phones that were used during the time. Now, for those who might not know what a rotary phone is, it was a way of dialing a number rather than punching a number or speaking the number into the phone. On the face of the phone was a circular dial with places to put your finger. Each place was assigned 3 numbers. So to make a call, you put your finger or the end of a pencil, or some other such device into the circle and spin the dial clockwise. It would then spin back to the starting position so you could enter the next number. When finished entering the phone number, it would send a signal to the switching center and the call would be put through. It was not cumbersome, but by today's standards of making a call, it was a challenge, especially in emergency situations. And if you called the wrong number, you had to start all over again. Well, 911 was also a unique number. It had not previously been used as an area code or office code. This made it easier to integrate into existing telephone systems. So AT&T announced that 911 would be the nationwide emergency number in 1968, and Congress subsequently passed legislation to reserve it for that purpose. Well, it would seem then that AT&T would be given credit for the first 911 call, and perhaps they did in testing the system. But credit for making the first official 911 call goes to the small Alabama town of Haleyville. In February 16, 1968, Alabama Speaker of the House Rankin Fite made the first 911 call to U.S. Representative Tom Bevel. The call was made from the mayor's office to the local police station. Haleyville is a small city in Winston and Marion counties in northwestern Alabama. The city was able to claim this honor over the communication giant AT&T. Today we use 911 with no thought about what went into making this valuable service commonplace. We would hope that no one would misuse this service. Well, unfortunately, there have been some misuses and strange, even humorous uses of this service. Here are a few memorable ones. One child called 911 because he wanted the police to arrest his little brother. His brother wasn't sharing his Lego blocks with him. I don't know why he didn't just call his mom. And then there was a man putting on a T-shirt when his shoulder popped out of socket and he was stuck with the shirt halfway off. His arm was locked and dislocated. Ouch! He explained that he would have driven himself to the hospital, but he would have had to drive with his arm hanging out the window. And then a child knew that his mom was a 911 dispatcher, so when he cut his finger, he called 911. And through tears, he asked the dispatcher to get his mom on the phone. Well, the backstory is that the boy's dad was sleeping and couldn't be woken up to administer first aid. It seems mom was not too happy about this. Then there was a burglar in Shelby County, Ohio. He was caught by police after he accidentally butt dialed 911. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's kind of unique to cell phones. So while he was breaking into the home, he accidentally called 911. Then to make matters worse, the crook hid in the closet, but he was ratted out by his phone yet again when the low battery alarm went off. Well, then there was a woman in Dacula, Georgia. She contacted police when her Chevy van went missing. Later that day, the woman called back to report that the vehicle had been found. It was in her yard, hidden behind some tall weeds. I think she needed a new lawnmower. Well, seriously, don't abuse the 911 system. It is for true emergencies, and we're thankful to those that develop the 911 system and those that make it work. Most of all, we thank the tireless and patient dispatchers that handle hundreds of thousands of calls per day. In an average year, there are over 240 million 911 calls made in the United States. And to think it all began with one call in Haleyville, Alabama. Well, friends, there you have it, a story from America's past. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to continue listening as we bring more episodes about the rich heritage of our great nation. I invite you to share this podcast with others. If you have interesting stories about historical markers, I invite you to email me at info@americanhistoricalmarkers.com. That's info@americanhistoricalmarkers.com. I'm Dave Layton, and thank you for listening, and safe travels.